Good morning, everyone, and welcome to A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and I'm going live directly today from Enlightened World Network's Facebook page. We are having a couple of technical difficulties with Zoom, so we are live here, and I want to thank you for joining me. The show must go on. All right. And here we are with the workbook for students. If you watched the live stream from yesterday, you'll know that I gave a little preview of the workbook, and I really want to thank everybody for tuning in and thank everyone for joining me here today. This is going to be a journey that's going to last, well, over a year. As you may know, the workbook is arranged in a series of 365 numbered lessons, sequential from 1 to 365. That's the title of this live stream. And it's designed, if one wants, to go through it in a year. You could do it doing one lesson at a time, every day, for a year, and then be done with the workbook. With emphasis on the word done, you're never really done. Why? It's an exercise that we go through to change our minds. The workbook aims to help us shift our perception from the ego, from separation to God, to love, to unity. All of those things brings about that change in all of our minds. So the workbook will challenge you. Number one, who remembers exactly everything to do on a given day? Right? We're overwhelmed in modern life with our Twitter feeds, with our Facebook feeds, with email, with all kinds of demands coming at us from all over the place. It is really something that trips people up in this workbook study, is getting 7 or 8 days in and then forgetting a day. What I have to say, so what? Just show up and do your best on every given day. The workbook has a lesson, which we'll talk about today and every day, and you practice it. It is practical. It's designed to help you through your own application of the idea for the day to bring you to a spot where you are shifting your perception, and you do it one moment at a time. We each have a choice. We have a choice to choose love or fear, God or the ego. That is the choice, the only choice, really, that we make every given moment. Now, it may seem that we have millions and millions of things to choose from, and of course, in the relative world, that may appear to be true. Really, it's just one, and the Course gets us thinking differently, perceiving things differently, perceiving ourselves differently, perceiving other people and the world, circumstances, experience, events, all of it differently. And it's beautiful. Now, the introduction to the workbook does say that you may actively resist some of these lessons, starting with today's. Because if you've never had any exposure to this type of thing, to this type of thought system, a really non-dual thought system, then it may seem real weird. It may seem out there to you. Possibly, some of you might even feel threatened by this. The Course and the workbook just asks you to practice the lesson for what it is. Nothing more, nothing less. Just do the exercises as you remember to do them. And if you miss a few days, don't worry about it. Really, it's okay. What I want everyone to do is forgive yourself and give yourself some grace. We talked about this yesterday. It's very, very important because so few of us regularly, routinely, and consistently do this. Give yourself some grace if you miss a day. This live stream will have all of the lessons. This is lesson 1, and if you pick this stream up on the 20th of February or in March or April or any time, just start scroll back, find day one. This is on Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. If you're following my personal Facebook page, Change Without Limits, we're going to have all of these videos there as well. So there are places where you can find it. So let's talk about today's lesson. All right, lesson one, if you've got the workbook in front of you. Nothing I see in this room means anything. How about that? Nothing I see in this room means anything. Already, we're into the territory of non-dual spirituality, which is spirituality in general. We're into our perception of the world already in lesson one. So, what this talks about is having us twice today look around for no more than a minute and just indiscriminately look at objects, look at what's in front of you and say, this table does not mean anything. This selfie stick does not mean anything. This rug behind me does not mean anything. This jacket does not mean anything. This ear does not mean anything. This face does not mean anything. And go from there. So, what exactly does this mean that nothing we see means anything? It means we perceive things differently than they really are, which may make sense to you, and it may not. We perceive things as independently existing in and of themselves. Why? Because in our experience, they've always existed. A table, as far as we know, and as far as we're taught in life, has always been a table. The raw materials were there before it was a table. The raw materials for the selfie stick were there. Now it's a selfie stick. It's a selfie stick, right? This is an ear. This is an eyebrow. Behind me is a rug. This is a jacket. And we assign all of these things meaning. In fact, in regular perception, even the words that we use to describe things are not the things themselves. What is jacket in a different language? It's something else. In any language, it is a term that we came up with. We made it up. Somebody, somewhere, made it up, and we've adopted it, and we've all agreed that this thing that I'm wearing is called a jacket. This thing, this colorful, geometrical thing behind me is a rug. And we just take that for granted. It is what it is. To say nothing that exists in this room means anything shifts our perception from relative to ultimate truth. In other words, from the relative world where things appear, like jackets, like ears, like rugs, rings, hands, fingers, things that appear to exist on their own, independently, don't really have the meaning that we think they do. Now, if that is enough esoteric talk for you, I certainly understand. I'm happy to go into more detail. And this is a short live stream. It's only about 15 minutes a day. But where we're going with this is just do the exercises. In A Course in Miracles, the function of time is to give us space, which is the same as time, to give us space and time to wake up, to give us the opportunity to change our perception. Nobody else can change that for us. We can listen to teachings from very enlightened sages. We can listen to podcasts. We can watch people's live streams. We have lots of ability to learn from each other and connect to each other. Where we're all going with this is the absolute truth of who we really are. And you can most certainly ask that question directly. Who am I? Really? But I encourage you to do that. And the course would encourage you to do that. Now, in the relative framework, these workbook lessons appear, and they're very effective. If you've never done this before, this is very effective. It's a very effective exercise to look around and be able to say, this does not mean anything. So I'm looking out a window right now in Phoenix, Arizona. It's actually a little bit cloudy here this morning in the desert. And I'm looking, and I can extend my view from the table, from this ear, the rug. This ring does not mean anything. This jacket does not mean anything. To that car does not mean anything. That SUV does not mean anything. This tree does not mean anything. This street does not mean anything. This park does not mean anything. So the lesson asks you, and every workbook lesson will be different in the number of times that it asks you to remember to repeat the idea. And nothing more than using the idea is required. Belief is not required, because we think that everything means something. We assign it meaning. Ultimately, it does not. And this is just step number one in what is a long and, in fact, a beautiful, beautiful process if you show up and you allow this wisdom to go to work for you. So I want to thank all of you who are tuning in live. And if you have particular questions or comments, feel welcome to comment here. I will get back to you on this with ideas, questions, comments. If you need any guidance or need any further assistance on this, I'm happy to help. I really appreciate all of you tuning in, and this is lesson 1, so practice this today. Nothing I see in this room means anything. Ultimately. And it's ultimate truth that we're going for. So thank you for tuning in, and I'll be back here live tomorrow on Enlightened World Network with lesson 2. And we'll talk about that. We go from there. So happy practicing, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you so much for joining me.